Check my, check. Hey there guys, welcome to my compound life. I am Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course we build freedom. That will be financial freedom, time freedom for you, me, and anyone else that watches my video. So how's everyone doing? Just a quick check-in with all of you. There's been so much going on for the past 24 hours. Huge dip for Bitcoin. Not sure whether you guys have checked in on my Bitcoin daily video. I've covered quite extensively on that video already, like what's going on in terms of price action. So just want to catch up with you guys face to face with you, individual one of you. Are you guys okay? Right? I hope so. Especially, I do know a lot of my viewers, this is actually their first cycle, right? So, and also took notice a few viewers may have purchased Bitcoin at the top, and at the same time, you know, they continue to DCA. I mean, that's it, guys. Continue to DCA. That's the best way to handle the situation, right? Not the time to panic sell, guys. Not the time to panic sell. Look through the RSI. I've mentioned the RSI. It's very low. It's one of the lowest compared to, I don't know, was it 2021 or even 2011, right? So Bitcoin hasn't gotten to such low of an RSI, right? So there are a lot of analysts out there are saying that this is the bottom, right? But at the same time, it could well be the bottom, right? So yesterday I created another video. I create too many videos. I'm not sure whether you guys are watching it or keeping up with my video. There's so many different theories explaining where potentially we are. However, I think most importantly, right, you guys have to make your own decision, right? We are in the bear market, okay? Historically, so what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to give you all different possibilities so that you guys can make your own strategic decision on what to expect next, right? Because ultimately, number one, I'm not here to ask you to buy lump sum in or whatever, right? So none of my advice are valid. It's just me chatting with myself, me giving myself suggestion, right? So non-financial advice, and always do your own research. So by no means this video is encourage anyone to buy or sell. So purely for entertainment purpose only, by the way. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is to make sure that if I were to deploy any capital, right? So obviously 60K was magnificent buy. RSI was ultra low, all-time low, right? So that was a good time to get in, right? But at the same time, I'm here to also indicate the fact that we are only 4 months through a typical 12 to 15 months Bitcoin cycle, right? Of course, purely just looking at the RSI, it does seem 60K could mark the bottom, right? However, having been through, you know, the past 2 cycles, so this is my 3rd cycle, by the way, that there's always another dip. There will always be someone that will capitulate eventually, right? So yesterday, it was Bitcoin gotten pretty low, right? I don't feel we are at that capitulation stage, okay? And there will be cascading effect that, you know, whatever happened, let's say the macro the liquidations happening on Bitcoin and crypto, someone, somewhere, or company, or individual will capitulate, and that will cause a whole cascading effect for every single thing, right? So a little bit like what Michael Burry is saying, right? So I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. And of course, whilst we are waiting for that final capitulation, which, by the way, may come or may not come, right? All we can do now is to have this fixated in our mind that if I were to have this amount of money to be deployed into, I don't know what, could be Bitcoin or could eventually be onto AI stocks and shares, this is where you need to start to make a very, very solid plan, right? So, by the way, I've been DCA'ing into buying more Tesla shares, which, by the way, it's not financial advice because I've been stacking Teslas for many, many years already. So my average is pretty low, right? And for me, I'm just trying to get to a certain goals of number of Tesla shares, and I think I'm very, very close to it. Almost 90%, close to my accumulation objectives, right? So by the time I get there, so every time, when Tesla dips a little bit, I'll stack, right? Just a little bit like Bitcoin, what I'm doing, right? So yesterday obviously was a good time to stack a little bit. Even right now. So what's Bitcoin price right now? 67,000. So 60,000 was magnificent buy for a lot of people, right? Imagine if Bitcoin gets to $250,000, 4x from your buy from yesterday. That's pretty cool, right? That's pretty solid gain. 4x within a period of less than 4 years now, guys, right? So yeah, I think so I'm quite worried, because all the time I've been telling you guys that it's a 4-year cycle. It'll be 12 months of bear years with 4 months through it. However, this time around, Bitcoin price did indeed fell to almost reaching the 200 weeks moving average. That was so close, guys. 60,000 versus 58,000 for 200 weeks moving average. Maybe we could get there over the weekend when, liquidity are ultra thin. And then maybe market maker just want to take out more leverage long because it's easy, right? Everyone thinks 60K was the bottom, RSI was all-time low, so that's where market makers might just come in, do one more final sweep. Okay, so be very, very careful if you guys are doing leverage long or short, right? Because I can definitely see a huge amount of shorts piling up right now. And guys, by the way, I don't think there are any leverage traders here anyway. So, by the way, please be reminded that there's still this CME gaps that you need to be mindful of for Bitcoin. I think it's around 84,000. For Ethereum, I forgot. I think it's 3,000 or 3,200. But anyway, be careful with that. That could be the final dead cat bounce before we even go more downwards, right? So earlier in this morning video, I think in the video we kind of looked through if Bitcoin price do follow last cycle where we top at 69,000 and then it took about 30 weeks, I think. Yeah, 30 weeks to get to the bottom, right? To get to the 200 weeks moving average, 26 weeks, I believe. Yeah, 26 weeks. If that's the case, how long, did it stay below that 200 weeks moving average? And I can't remember how many weeks, but it stayed and retraced at that range below 200 weeks moving average for quite some time, for quite a few weeks actually. So be mindful of that. So that's why if you manage to deploy at 60,000, great, fantastic. It's not, 60,000 and 67,000 right now. I don't think there's too big of a difference, because, what if the next bull market all-time high becomes 200,000, $250,000, right? But for most certainly, I do anticipate some sort of a relief rally coming, right? And that relief rally could potentially help us to get to the CME gap of 83, 84,000. So this is the time where you don't want to FOMO in and buy into the relief rally, right? However, you just need to stay strong to understand the rhythm, right? If we still continue to play out, 12 months to get to the bottom, we're 4 months through already. So bear that in mind, guys. So there's so much possibilities playing out in my mind right now. So that's why I've come to a stage that it's actually hard it's hard to predict the bottom and the top. You guys know all of this, right? So I think whatever it is, this year, right now, is the best time to do heavy DCA, right? Not financial advice, do your own research. At least that's what I'm thinking right now, okay? So, thank goodness I sold some altcoins. I mean, looking at all my altcoins, my other cryptocurrencies bleeding right now. It's so painful, right? I did make a few strategic decisions, all of the smaller caps, altcoins. I did manage to swap them into Bitcoin. So that was the best thing I did in the last kind of bull market, just about when we entered the bull market, because the last cycle, there were a time when altcoins rally a little bit, and then immediately I made some good gains. I start to rotate them back into Bitcoin, because I know that for any Bitcoin cycle, right? For any Bitcoin cycle, all you want to do is to hold as much Bitcoin as possible. That's number one, okay? Even for bear cycle, you want to hold as much as Bitcoin as possible too, guys, right? Another thing is, even if sometime, right, you need to make that harsh decision, right? Very, very hard, tough decision. If altcoins are not performing, maybe cut losses, right? And rotate that back into other better performing altcoins, okay? I'm not saying immediately to Bitcoin, right? So what I'm doing right now, right? So this is meant to a Bitcoin video, but I'm just letting you guys what I'm planning to do right now, okay? I still do hold some altcoin, by the way, right? Which I haven't been able to sell all because I was hoping there would be an alt season, okay? Altcoin season. But it never came, guys, right? I know how it feels, very frustrating, right? So that's why if you guys got into Bitcoin in your first cycle, do not buy anything else. Okay, just focus on Bitcoin. Please promise me you do that, right? Because at any point of time, you just simply want to hold more Bitcoin as opposed to higher risk cryptocurrency, right? I made that mistake in my first cycle, and then I corrected it. Well, in my first 2 cycles, and then later in the second cycle, towards the end, I corrected it and start to rotate into Bitcoin. So I did a lot better in my 3rd cycle, right? And I just want to make sure that you guys will never ever make this kind of mistake again, right? But having said that, I'm not saying that altcoins, other crypto tokens are not good and don't touch them. What I'm doing, I'm speaking with experience only, purely just my experience, right? What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get rid of as much of my other tokens as possible. I've held that this would be my third cycle, continue to hold some of them, right? By the time, as soon as I can get some profits, I will be out of most of other tokens apart from the layer 1, okay? So I do hold a lot of other layer 1, but I just want to focus on a few layer 1 tokens, such as Ethereum, such as Solana, and another key one, I think BNB, right? Binance, what do you call it? It's just BNB anyway. It's owned by Binance, it's Binance Chain. Yeah, so because if I do sell some of these tokens at a loss, I want to recoup them. And I know that during old season, if I can get back at the low in some of these tokens, I will actually have greater gain versus Bitcoin, right? But of course, not financial advice, do your own research. I do have a bag of Ethereum, I do have a bag of Solana, I do have a bag of BNB, right? I actually reduced a lot of my BNB and tried to swap that into Ethereum. So that was such a huge mistake, to be honest. But in the end, the best decision I've made, it's actually to rotate more into Bitcoin. I was at one point I was making good profit from Bitcoin when I cash out. I actually also, in my last cycle, I started to rotate into my Tesla shares, right? So that's why I've got a decent sized Tesla bag right now. And I kind of do have a lot of expectation for Tesla because it's the closest thing to a real world AI. It's like, you know, a lot of companies are not cracking it, and the fact that they spend so much on AI, their capex are all-time high when it comes to funding for AI, but essentially having no return, right? And the company that actually does this really well, that has a very low capex for AI spending, is actually Tesla. So that's why I'm continuing to building out my Tesla bag at the same time. But anyway, it's a Bitcoin video. I know I built our community for Bitcoin viewers, but at the same time, I'm just trying to be transparent to you guys. Which, by the way, I don't really rely on Bitcoin as a source of income, right? If you kind of watch my video and kind of thought, hey, Jonathan, he's like a Bitcoin retiree that does nothing but look at Bitcoin price all day round. No, I don't just do that, man. I mean, check out my other video. I look at properties and stuff like that. You know, these are all my other investments. Bitcoin gives me good growth. It protects my wealth. That's pretty much it, right? Good growth definitely can help me to fund and help me to pay off properties for sure. But at the same time, I do rely on other income sources to get by, right? And the other thing, I'm kind of like working on this YouTube thing. This is like one of my passion project, which maybe one day, if I can get to 1,000 subscribers, maybe I'll get into monetization for my YouTube channel. You never know. I mean, by the way, I'm like 700 right now for my subscribers. It's always nice if you guys, follow my content. Just hit the like, hit subscribe. The more you hit the like, the more like-minded individual will be able to discover my content. So that's kind of like your way of giving me back something, right? So I actually do appreciate a lot of that if you do. But anyway, stay strong, guys. I mean, have the expectation, right? If you miss the 60,000 accumulation, come on, 67,000, how bad is it, right? But at the same time, I want to warn you guys, I've been there, I've been through it before, and I've DCA in too early because there will always be some macro that can essentially bring down the price for Bitcoin, right? So looking at last cycle, potentially we can drop another 20 to 30%, okay? And essentially that would bring us down to what, 47,000. Will 40 and 47,000 be a good accumulation zone? Whew, for sure, guys, for sure. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, right? So I've got a user that responded in the comment, I slept. You know what? I slept at that time too, because I think I responded to someone's comment at around 11:30, and then I was like, too lazy. I'm just gonna go to sleep. So Bitcoin dipped a lot at around 12 a.m. to about 60,000. So some of you will obviously, miss that accumulation. Guys, lesson learned, right? So why don't you set up your DCA plan? Just put it onto an Excel sheet or something. Half of this money, I will do daily DCA, right? Maybe my daily DCA will be like a bell shape. We'll start with small daily accumulation, followed by heavier accumulation towards October, November, December, and then reduce that daily DCA accordingly, right? So that, because we know that Bitcoin somehow bottom, 12 to 15 months, right? And you don't want to miss out the DCA right now because, things are at a discount, right? So essentially you do a bell curve, daily DCA. Now would be a good time to start your daily DCA. Not financial advice, do your own research. But at the same time, another set of your money, what you want to do might be to buy the low, right? So as I've mentioned before, when would be the low? I don't know, right? But looking at charts, looking at how Bitcoin bounces off certain things, maybe half of that money, right? What you might want to do is, I will buy when Bitcoin hit $58,000, right? So that would be a good buy, by the way, guys. I will buy, so perhaps out of that 50%, 10% buy at 58,000, right? Another 15 or 20% I will get in when Bitcoin hits 50,000, right? Another 10% would be going in at 45,000 and 40,000, right? I'm just thinking out loud, right? So that you're not going to be too concerned whether you're in bed or not at that time, right? So I'm just some suggestion, guys, just some suggestion, right? If Bitcoin does go up, right, great. You just missed that buying opportunity, but you've still got your DCA, daily DCA going, guys, right? If Bitcoin goes even higher up and never ever return to 58,000 to 40,000, that's fine. That money can be reserved to buy the dips, right? Maybe there could be another dips when Bitcoin get to another 70K, right? And then you might want to capture that, right? So just some suggestion on what you guys can consider. But anyway, I've been reiterating this too much. I hope you guys don't mind. Sometimes I just babble on. But anyway, happy Friday, guys. I mean, it's been tough. I know it's been tough. I've been there, right? This is the time you shouldn't leave, right? This is the time you should have a very clear plan to say that I want to stick on one cycle, 4 years. I'll start with DCA in heavily for my first bear cycle, because one bear year leading on to 3 years of bull cycle. Okay, bear that in mind, guys, bear that in mind. Of course, so I'm currently working on some research right now, because there's a lot of speculation that, you know what, how this current cycle turned out, where we didn't have a blow off top or parabolic move. You know, a lot of it was being suggested because it's all due to the paper Bitcoin. And I'm just kind of trying to dig around to find out, was this the case, right? Because obviously gold also have heaps of paper gold, paper silver, right? So what I'm trying to do is to do some research on that and give you guys some transparency, because very likely we'll need to plan, would this also happen in the next cycle, right? And if that's the case, maybe we shouldn't wait for too long, right? To take profits. But anyway, a lot in my mind. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate you guys going through this cycle with me. For me, I mean, it's an interesting cycle because a lot has changed. A lot has changed from the fact that there wasn't a blow at top, there wasn't an alt season, Bitcoin dropped so fast, nearing the 200 weeks moving average. A lot to take in and to replan, going back to my drawing board to replan how I might want to redeploy this. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please remember to hit the like, hit subscribe. Let me know in the comment section where you guys are watching from, right? Always love to hear from every one of you. Okay, happy Friday. Have a good weekend. If charts makes you unhappy, stop looking at it. But do not leave this cycle. Okay, thanks guys. Bye-bye.